To barb or not to barb? That is the question. You ready to run and gun? It's time for blast off. Let's go. Hey guys, Todd here with you. Welcome back to Bassin 101. Truck talking barbless hooks. I thought I'd throw some Shakespeare in there. You know, little line, little rod action, whatever. I've been getting, a lot of emails. I've gotten some comments, a few texts from guys. Well, when do you use a barbless hook? Because you mentioned barbless and then not barbless and this, that, and the other. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably going to disagree with some of this stuff, but this is just from my own experiences. If I'm using a hook that has no weight attached to it at all, then I'll use a barbless hook. I'll crush the barb down and use a barbless hook, because the chances of a bass swallowing that bait and getting the hook in the gullet being weightless like that, that's a pretty good chance. So if you've got a barbless hook, it's easier to just get it out of there. Take a pair of hemostats or whatever, just curve it out of their gullet and you're good. No harm, no foul. I've tried where they tell you to reverse a hook and then it'll just come right out with a barb on it, whatever. I've never been able to get that to work. I always just cut the hook as low as I can with no blood or whatever and just release the fish. And they swim off every time. So their chances of survival are even better. But as far as if I'm throwing, say, a jig, or let's say a pegged Texas rig, or actually just a Texas rig in general, I'll throw a barbed hook. Now, I did for a while fish barbless, and I've got a video coming out here probably next couple of weeks of where I lose a lot of fish, good fish too, on a Texas rig that I had barbless. And that kind of, that kind of set it for me right there. 99% of the time I throw a pegged sinker. Now, I don't do the toothpick thing. I don't do the bobber stop thing. I use a rubber band technique, which I've shown you guys a few times on this channel how I do that. I might update it with another version just to keep it fresh. But my rubber band system, especially once the line gets wet, it will shoot up the line. But if there's a chance that it doesn't, and that can happen on a standard slip sinker rig too. I've seen slip sinker rigs that aren't pegged at all still rest against the head of the worm. It depends on the snap of that line for that weight to move up. Doesn't always happen. But that still gives them weight. Even if my sinker, say, shoots 2 foot up a line away from that hook, if they get any kind of loose line out of a jump whatsoever, and you can be the best bass fighter on a rod there is in the world, or just you're always going to get a slight bit of slack in it when they go to jump, and they can use that weight and throw a barbless hook. So I kind of like to have a barbed hook on a Texas rig, especially if the worm really gets bunched up in the bend of that hook. You kind of want that barb to keep them pinned. Otherwise, that worm can actually help the hook work out. So that's my basic philosophy on it. If I'm throwing a Texas rig on a Senko, I will just bite the bullet and go ahead and crush the barb, because they are really bad about swallowing a Senko. But as far as a weightless Senko, I always crush the barb, because they can swallow that dude. I've had a lot of bass swallow a Senko. Had a lot of bass swallow a missile bait magic worm too. I guess it's the salt. But things like a slider worm, I don't crush the barb on a slider worm. Even though I don't use that much weight, but still, you don't want that thing coming flying back at you and hit you in the head. Or, or like me, I'll duck my head down or bounce off the brim of my hat. Thank goodness. That'd have been a face hit. So yeah, I don't do anything like that. A weighted wacky rig would have a barb. I did have a crush barb on a wacky rig just out of habit. I crushed the the hook. It's been a few weeks ago, and hooked a good one. And as soon as she jumped out of the water, she threw it. I was like, oh man, I forgot to leave the barb on that hook. So yeah, that was on a weighted wacky rig. Drop shot. I don't know. I think you'll have to experiment with a drop shot. Personally, I would kind of prefer to crush the barb because they can't just come up and just go and just and go up the whole entire thing. But the weight could be a wedge to knock them loose. So I don't know. I think you just have to experiment with that. Kind of the way I did with the Texas rig. You just have to experiment with it. Carolina rigging. I'm not sure. That's another experiment. I would say you could probably keep the barb. But I would definitely experiment with it. I've never had a bass swallow a soft plastic on a Carolina rig. So I would say probably just keep the barb. I mean, there's always that chance, of course. But it is a continuous moving rig that you pause long enough to pull up your slack. So, experiment with it. Everybody's different. The way they fight a fish, everybody's different. So you just have to kind of go with your own technique of fighting a fish. But that's my whole thing of throwing a barbed hook or a barbless hook. You notice I didn't mention anything about plugs. For you new kids on the block, plugs means like crankbaits and jerk baits and topwater, stuff like that. Lead baits, spinner baits, things like that. Yeah, I kind of like to keep the barb on those things because they can toss them and come right back at you. Especially like if you've got a topwater or a crankbait's got multiple treble hooks, that can hurt. That's a lot of barbs coming at you at one time too. Ouch. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, how many of you guys have experimented with barbless hooks? Because I'm trying to be conservative about it and be a conservationist and all that. So give the bass a fighting chance. I mean, I don't keep them, so that's just me. And, I don't even like seeing people keep a bass. There's plenty of other fish in the water. That's another video. But anyway, so until next time, guys, remember, new techniques are trendy, but bass never change. May the Father bless you, keeping Yeshua's name, and as always, fish on.